Hi, Craig here, greeting you at Easy Vegan Lessons. Welcome to part 2 of Italian Feast, where we will be doing our vegan meatballs. As I say, I come from an Italian background and I grew up on meatballs, but gave up eating them when I was 19 years old, quite a while ago. And it's a pleasure to rediscover that once in a while you may want something reminiscent of what you enjoyed before while eating meat, or perhaps you're transitioning to a vegan diet, in which case you will enjoy something that you're familiar with. And the great thing about Vital Wheat Gluten is it's super high in protein, 21 grams for a quarter of a cup. It's a processed wheat where the protein content is made to be higher and the carb content is lowered. It's commonly used for beef substitutes of all kinds. You can do burgers, chicken fillet kind of things. Although TVP, which is made from soya, textured vegetable protein, TVP, is often used for chicken and fish substitutes. But the Vital Wheat Gluten could be used as well. It's more of a brown color. TVP is more white, so it lends itself to the chicken, fish kind of substitute dishes that you would do in vegan cuisine. There's different ways that one can do this. You can boil the TVP after making it into little balls, adding a certain amount of liquid. In this case, I'll be cooking some vegetables, adding that for nutrition and texture and color to the Vital Wheat Gluten. We'll be sauteing that, then baking it, and then serving it with tomato sauce. So let's jump in and have some fun with Vital Wheat Gluten. And by the way, I want you to improv. This is not a recipe. It's a lesson. It's a demonstration of one set of possibilities within an envelope of many possibilities. If you do go outside of the envelope, you'll maybe get results that you'll have to improve on next time. But having no fear of being courageous and creative is the way to really enjoy the process, learn and discover, and become much better at what you're doing, rather than being shackles to a recipe and thinking there's only one way of doing it. That's not the way that I teach. That's why I say lessons rather than recipes. So let's hop in and have some fun. And do subscribe if you want to never miss a lesson. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's get started. As I said in the intro, I'll be using some vegetables. There's different ways you can go about it. You can do it with no vegetables and just heat up the Vital Gluten balls in a broth. And that's a good way of doing it as well. I chose to do it by using a variety of vegetables. I have some cabbage here. I'm going to saute the cabbage with onions, garlic, beets, and celery. Insofar as the amounts are concerned, I'll be using 1 1/4 cup of celery. We have a cup of onion here, 1 cup of beets, 1 1/4 cup of cabbage. Grating the beets will be steamed. Everything else will be sauteed. So I'm prepping the parsley for later, which I'll add after this sauteing is done directly to the wheat gluten and the vegetables with some liquid. I did get them into a tight little wad, so when cutting, one needs to only cut once. I do that with cilantro as well. I'm smashing the garlic skins off, cutting off the ends so the skins come off easy. I got my onions cut to about 1/4 inch minced. If I had more garlic, I would use a food processor. In this case, it's only 3 or 4 cloves, doing it by hand. Always being careful to keep my fingers tucked in. Time to steam the beets. Beets are steaming. Meanwhile, I'll saute my onions, celery, cabbage, garlic. Adding in some oil, a couple of tablespoons, some salt. Beets are steamed nicely. I'll be adding the water that the beets were steamed in back to the mix on account of the rich mineral content. Some herbes de Provence, about 3/4 of a teaspoon. Got some oregano and black pepper. Black pepper about 1/2 teaspoon, oregano about 1 teaspoon. And there's about 1.5 cups of water from the steamed beets. Make everything more delicious and more nutritious. In 2 teaspoons of nutritional yeast for extra protein, amino acids. Adding in some oregano, fresh. Blending it up nicely in the blender. I'll be adding that to the Vital Wheat Gluten, arriving at the perfect consistency. Of course, you could have done this just with water and some oil, but the extra nutrition from the vegetables is unbeatable, and why not? Of course, you would want to enrich it. Some parsley that I chopped earlier. I'll be mixing this up, adding in the vegetables now. The fun part. Yay, where are the kids? Let's mix it up and get all covered with beets. No kids around, I guess I'll have to do it myself, oh well. Anyway, we'll be making meatballs out of this. Actually, you'll see I kind of got meat squares rather than the meatballs. And I'll explain why when we get to that point. Okay, here's why. To really make things quick, rather than doing each little individual ball by hand, I cut them in cubes. And the wheat gluten is such that it didn't want to cooperate. Once it was a square, it wanted to stay a square and not be a ball. So rather than argue, I let the meatballs be meat squares. So there you go. It tastes the same. And here are my meatballs. I mean meat squares. Well, call them anything you want. I'm sauteing them a little bit in the frying pan, giving them a little color. And I could have done that in the oven as well, which I will be putting in the oven afterwards. The old-fashioned way is to do it by the pan, and you get a little bit more flavor, but the oven is quicker and easier. But I decided to do it in the pan first, and then I put it in the oven to cook the inside a little bit more. And it's a pretty classic way of doing a lot of things, even fish and meat and chicken, and certainly vegetables as well. Getting a little color first, a little higher heat, then in the oven, heating up the inside. But you could do the whole deal in the oven too, for sure. You don't have to follow rules, conventions, or do anything in any classic way whatsoever if you don't feel like it. The end result is what counts. Okay, time to put them in the oven for about 25 minutes. I cover them with foil and about 300 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to get these out of the oven now. They are ready. So this is what we have. It's really, really good. Excellent. You want to bite?